Good afternoon, Good Shepherd. It's Wednesday, October 14th. Um, Last week, I had breakfast, with a friend of mine, uh, former administrator at the University of Denver. Hadn't seen him for a long time. Phone call or the invitation came to me out of the blue. Delightful to reconnect with Tom. And in the course of our conversation, he was telling me about his interest in the Roman Catholic author Richard Rohr. Some folks in the congregation may know a bit about Richard Rohr. He runs an organization now that's down in Albuquerque called the Center for Action and Contemplation. He's written a lot of books, some of which you all have read. And so we were talking about this, and not so much about the content of any of his books, but Tom told me that he went down to do a class or something down in Albuquerque. And he talked about driving up to the Center for Action and Contemplation. And he said it wasn't what he expected. And I said, well, I thought it'd be some kind of adobe place, kind of really cool and out in the desert. And he said, no, it was adobe, but it was in a really rundown, rough neighborhood of Albuquerque, rough neighborhood. And so we kept on talking, but that idea, that image of rough neighborhood sort of stuck with me. And then either that day or the next night, as part of our annual diocesan convention, we had a really, really wonderful keynote address given by the Bishop of Alabama, Bishop Wright. And in the course of his talk, he talked about being in a rough neighborhood. And I hadn't heard that language for quite a while. And I was struck by hearing it twice in just the course of a couple of days from two very, very different people, two very, very different contexts talking about very, very different things. And I started wondering about that idea of a rough neighborhood. Now, I know that most of us have a pretty good idea of what it would be like. We would define it in terms of the socioeconomic conditions or the predominant population of that place, or the level of crime, or something else. We would use all of these ways of defining what a rough neighborhood was, and I thought that the way that we often use it is reflective of our privilege. And Episcopalians have generally been a pretty privileged lot. Not all, but many have been a pretty privileged lot. And in fact, some churches have made their mission to go into rough neighborhoods to bring the benefits of the gospel to those neighborhoods. But I began to wonder whether or not our sort of passing off of rough neighborhoods as being those other people, that place across the tracks or on the other side of the freeway, sort of protects us from recognizing that we may live in rough neighborhoods too. They're just rough in a different way. And I wondered whether or not our quickness to define somebody else as rough means that we don't have to deal with them in quite the same way. And I was also reflecting on that based on some of the conversations that came out in our transitioning faith forum sessions, and the desire from a number of folks that Good Shepherd become more diverse, and wondering what that meant. And is diverse meaning we want a whole lot more people to become like us, that look different than us, but they would become like us? Or does diversity mean that we want to look more like our neighborhood? And is our neighborhood a rough neighborhood? It may not look like a lot of us, especially depending on which side of Dry Creek we're on. But I wondered, what if folk came that weren't, sort of the regulars, and they looked in and they would say, man, this is a rough neighborhood. Might we be a rough neighborhood? What would it look like if we stepped back and said, what do we look like to people from coming in from the outside? Are we rough because we all look alike, of a particular socioeconomic status, with a certain kind of level of criminality or non-criminality? A long time ago, I was riding my bike. Many of you have heard me tell stories about riding from San Francisco to Los Angeles to raise money for AIDS research. And I remember we got to a very, very upscale neighborhood or suburb north of Los Angeles. And as we were entering, there was a sign up right next to the sign that said, entering this town, I can't remember what it was, said, such and such a city is a drug-free zone. And those of us on the ride kind of chuckled because we said, well, drug-free in what way? I imagine that the level of certain sort of designer drugs is pretty high. So, how do we define things in ways that separate us from other people? And do we do that to our own detriment? It's just a ponderable, no accusation here. I think it's pretty natural for us to do that. But I began to wonder, is the corner of Dry Creek and Yosemite a rough neighborhood for some people? And what do we do to make it more inviting? Or what do we do to address the needs of that rough neighborhood? So just a ponderable. Let me know what you think. It's like I say, it's a ponderable. Just a few quick sort of announcements or reminders. I think most of you know we've started meeting outside on Sunday mornings at 11:30. And I just want to remind you that you need to reserve a spot so that we consecrate the right number of hosts and all of those kinds of things. And you need to reserve every week, not just once and assume that we'll remember. That's not how it works. So please go online and reserve every week. And please reserve if you plan on coming by the church later in the day to pick up a host. Again, so we make sure that we consecrate enough, but that we aren't over consecrating. The last two services have been wonderful. People have so much enjoyed seeing one another. It has been really great. It's been windy, which has presented its own challenges, but it's a work in progress even when the wind blows. And as we know from Scripture, the Spirit blows where it will, and the Spirit is blowing a new breath of some wonderful air into the family here at Good Shepherd. A reminder too, please fill out the communications survey that was emailed out on Monday. When I talked to staff yesterday, they said there were 29 that had come in. That's a far cry from what I know that we can come up with. We do want to be in communication with you as best we can. And we do recognize that some of the means that we have used in the past, we want to continue, and others of those means we just want to let sort of fall by the wayside or change. And your input will be valuable in all of that. So please, please, please it shouldn't take very long unless you have a lot to say in the text boxes, but just answering the other questions shouldn't take you more than just a few minutes. So please do that. And then the last thing is that unless you are attending the Zoom service, you will not see our regular stewardship moment unless you click on the link that comes out tomorrow in the e-news. The stewardship moment is pre-recorded and shown on Sunday mornings, and then it will link it in the e-news the following Thursday, so that those of you who didn't attend or went to the Eucharist at 11:30, so you'll have an opportunity to see it. I highly commend the talk that Carl Algermissen gave last week. Astonishingly lovely. So please find that and give it a listen, give it a watch, and give it a listen. And again, we'll have another one this coming Sunday, and that one will be linked in the e-news next Thursday. So look forward to seeing you sometime soon, either on Zoom or in person. Um, we will have a good Sunday. It looks like the weather is going to hold for yet another week. And again, I look forward to seeing you. Be well. My prayers are with you.